the impossible rescue. The emergency transmission reached the Galactic Council at precisely 1447 Universal Standard Time, and within moments, every representative in the Grand Assembly Hall understood that 50,000 lives hung in the balance. The message originated from Deepwater Station, a massive research facility floating in the heart of the Crimson Nebula, a region of space known for its unstable gases and unpredictable energy storms. For 18 years, the Morvani had operated the station without serious incident, studying the nebula's unique properties and harvesting rare plasma crystals that formed in its dense clouds. The Morvani were aquatic beings, evolved on a world covered entirely by deep oceans, and they had adapted their technology to work in fluid environments. Deepwater Station was a marvel of their engineering, a self-contained ecosystem that could process the nebula's gases and convert them into breathable atmosphere for the crew. But someone had triggered a cascade failure in the nebula's magnetic containment field. The science teams had detected it too late. Unknown attackers had deployed illegal destabilization devices throughout the sector, devices that were systematically collapsing the nebula's natural structure. What should have been a slow dissolution taking centuries was now happening in hours. The nebula was imploding, creating a compression wave that would crush anything caught inside it. The gases were becoming superheated, reaching temperatures that would vaporize standard hull materials. Worse still, the electromagnetic interference was so intense that conventional faster-than-light drives would fail within the nebula's boundaries. Any ship that entered would be trapped, unable to escape before the collapse reached critical mass. Station Director Kelver sent the distress signal knowing the mathematics were brutal. 50,000 Morvani scientists, technicians, and their families needed evacuation. His species required specialized environmental suits to survive outside their aquatic habitats, suits that were bulky and limited their mobility. Standard evacuation procedures would take at least 12 hours under ideal conditions. The nebula would collapse completely in 8 hours. The compression wave was already destroying the outer sections of Deepwater Station, and the electromagnetic storms were intensifying with each passing minute. Every calculation pointed to the same conclusion. There was no time for a conventional rescue, no technology in the known galaxy that could extract that many people from such a hostile environment before it was too late. The Galactic Council convened within 30 minutes. Representatives from 300 species filled the chamber, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, telepathic waves, and synthesized voices. The Zenthari, beings of pure crystalline structure who thought in mathematical patterns, ran probability simulations that took only seconds but considered millions of variables. The garish, massive creatures who had evolved in high-gravity environments and possessed incredible strength, consulted their historical databases for any precedent. The Lixian, a species of collective consciousness who shared thoughts across their entire population, broadcast waves of sorrow that resonated through every empathic species in the chamber. Every analysis reached the same devastating conclusion. A rescue operation would require ships to maintain position inside the collapsing nebula for at least 10 hours to evacuate all civilians. Current shielding technology could protect vessels for perhaps 3 hours before the superheated gases and electromagnetic interference caused catastrophic systems failure. Even if they sent every available ship from surrounding sectors, they would lose thousands of rescuers while saving only a fraction of the trapped Morvani. The numbers were merciless and unforgiving. Supreme Arbiter Thexlan, a Zenthari who had led the Council for 60 years, made the announcement at 1730 Universal Standard Time. Her crystalline form pulsed with colors that translated through the chamber's systems as words heavy with regret. The Galactic Council declared Deepwater Station a complete loss. They would not authorize a rescue operation that would sacrifice thousands more lives. They would observe a period of mourning. They would hunt down whoever had caused this atrocity and ensure they faced justice. But they would not send ships into the collapsing nebula to die alongside the Morvani. The decision followed every protocol, respected every calculation, and aligned with the fundamental principle that had guided galactic civilization for millennia. The needs of the many outweighed the needs of the few. To sacrifice 50,000 was tragic, but to sacrifice 50,000 more in a futile rescue attempt was simply illogical. Cold mathematics governed the universe and mathematics showed no mercy. Director Kelver received the response in his command center deep within Deepwater Station, where the compression effects had not yet penetrated. Around him, his people were already beginning to panic. The outer habitats had been abandoned as the gases compressed them like tin cans. He could feel the vibrations through the station's structure, a low-frequency hum that spoke of imminent structural failure. His species communicated partially through bioluminescent patterns on their skin, and the entire station was flickering with fear, parents trying to calm their young while knowing there was no hope. He studied the council's negative response and felt something in his triple-chambered heart grow cold. It was not anger because the Morvani rarely felt anger. It was something deeper, a profound sense of cosmic abandonment. They would die here, and the galaxy would remember them with memorial services and historical records. But that would not change the fact that they had been deemed not worth saving. But the distress signal had not only reached the Galactic Council. It had also been picked up by a human patrol ship conducting routine surveys in the adjacent sector. Captain Sarah Chen was 46 years old, had served in Earth's exploration fleet for 23 years, and had a reputation for three things: brilliant tactical thinking, a complete disregard for regulations she considered stupid, and an absolute refusal to abandon anyone who needed help. She was in her ready room aboard the ESS Horizon when the distress call came through. She listened to Director Kelver's translated message once, his voice carrying the resignation of someone who had already accepted death. Then she played it again. 50,000 civilians, collapsing nebula, 8 hours remaining, request immediate assistance if possible. Chen pulled up the Galactic Council's response and read it without expression. Then she stood, adjusted her uniform and walked directly to the bridge. Her first officer, Commander Marcus Webb, looked up when she entered and immediately recognized the expression on her face. He had served with Chen for 12 years and knew exactly what that look meant. They were about to do something either brilliant or catastrophic, possibly both. The Council said no, Webb stated before she could speak. They ran every simulation. The electromagnetic interference will disable our FTL drives. We'll be trapped in there with no way out. 50,000 people, Chen said quietly. Families, children, researchers who dedicated their lives to understanding the universe, and we have ships in range. We have the Horizon, the Valkyrie, and the Artemis all within 6 hours of the nebula. That's 3 ships against a collapsing nebula that will destroy anything caught inside it. The Council has technology centuries beyond ours, and they concluded it's impossible. Then maybe they're not thinking creatively enough. Webb studied his captain carefully. Outside the bridge viewports, stars streaked past as the Horizon maintained its patrol route. Earth's exploration fleet was still relatively new to the galactic community, humanity having achieved faster-than-light travel only 40 years ago. They were considered young, inexperienced, and somewhat reckless by most other species. What are you thinking? Chen asked. I'm thinking that humans have a bad habit of ignoring impossible when people need help. I'm also thinking that our shield technology is different from standard galactic designs. We use layered redundancy instead of unified field projection. We've never tested it against nebula compression, but theoretically, Chen interrupted, give me a plan. A real one, not a suicide run. Webb moved to the tactical station and pulled up the nebula's readings. The electromagnetic interference is the primary problem. It'll shut down our FTL drives, trap us inside. But if we can't go through faster-than-light space, maybe we go through real space instead. At sublight speeds, it would take months to cross the nebula. We don't have months, we have hours. Webb smiled, and it was the smile of someone about to propose something genuinely insane. What if we don't cross the nebula? What if we surf it? The compression wave is moving inward from all directions. But compression creates pressure differentials, and pressure differentials create currents. If we time it right, we could ride the compression wave itself, use its energy to propel us through the nebula faster than our engines alone could manage. Chen stared at the tactical display, her mind already racing through the implications. It would require perfect timing, precise navigation, and shields strong enough to withstand forces that would tear most ships apart. It would also require coordination between multiple vessels, all maintaining formation while riding an expanding wave of superheated gases and electromagnetic chaos. It was perhaps the most dangerous thing she had ever considered, and she had once navigated through an asteroid field during a solar flare. Get me Captains Okafor and Zhang, Chen ordered. If we're going to do this, we're going to need every ship we have, and someone find me our best physicist. I need to know if Webb's insane idea has any chance of actually working. Within an hour, Chen had assembled her team. The 3 human ships in the sector, the Horizon, Valkyrie, and Artemis, represented Earth's commitment to exploration and rescue operations. Each was equipped with Earth's latest shield technology, powerful engines, and crews that had been selected for their ability to handle extreme situations. Dr. James Okoye, the Horizon's chief physicist, studied Webb's proposal with growing excitement. His background was in extreme environment dynamics, and he had published papers on using natural phenomena for propulsion. This is absolutely crazy, Okoye said, looking up from his calculations, and it might actually work. The compression wave is moving at approximately 0.3 light speed. If we position ourselves at the wave's leading edge and angle our shields to create a surfing effect, we could theoretically ride it inward toward deep-water station. The electromagnetic interference will be intense, but our layered shields should protect the critical systems long enough. How long is long enough? Chin asked. 3 hours, maybe 4 if we're lucky. After that, the shields will start failing and will be exposed to temperatures that will melt our hulls. Can we evacuate 50,000 people in 3 hours? Not conventionally, Okoye admitted, but I have an idea about that too. The Morvani need aquatic environments. What if we convert our cargo bays into temporary water tanks? We can fit 5 times more people if they're in their natural fluid environment instead of wearing bulky environmental suits. Chin felt something shift in her chest, the familiar sensation of an impossible plan starting to look possible. Make it happen. I want those cargo bays converted within 2 hours. Webb, coordinate with Valkyrie and Artemis. We're going to need perfect synchronization. And someone contact Deepwater Station. Let them know help is coming. The Morvani director Kelver received the message 45 minutes later, and for several seconds he could not process what he was hearing. His bioluminescent patterns flickered in confusion, then shifted to something that might have been hope, fragile and dangerous. Captain Chin, this is Director Kelver. We received your transmission, but we must inform you that the Galactic Council has already determined rescue is impossible. The electromagnetic interference, the compression wave, the time constraints, all make this attempt suicide for your ships. We cannot ask you to sacrifice yourselves. You're not asking, Chin replied, her voice calm and absolutely certain. We're offering. And humanity has a saying, Director Kelver. The only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them into the impossible. Get your people ready to evacuate. We're coming in. Against all odds. The 3 human ships arrived at the edge of the Crimson Nebula at 1915 Universal Standard Time, and the sight that greeted them would be seared into the memory of every crew member forever. The nebula stretched across space like a vast crimson ocean, its gases swirling in patterns that defied normal physics. But this was no longer the stable phenomenon that scientists had studied for decades. The compression wave was visible even from a distance, a darker ring of condensed matter moving inward from all directions, crushing everything in its path. The electromagnetic storms created lightning displays that arced between gas clouds, each bolt carrying enough energy to vaporize a small moon. And somewhere deep within that chaos, hidden behind layers of superheated plasma and magnetic interference, was Deepwater Station with 50,000 Morvani waiting to die. Captain Sarah Chin stood on the bridge of the horizon, studying the sensor readings with an expression that gave away nothing of the fear churning in her stomach. The compression wave was moving faster than their initial calculations had predicted, and the temperature readings were climbing into ranges that should not be possible in normal space. Beside her, Commander Webb worked the tactical station with focused intensity, calculating approach vectors and shield configurations. Dr. Okoye was at the science station, monitoring the wave patterns and making constant adjustments to their surfing trajectory. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, but Chin could feel the tension radiating from every person. They all knew what they were attempting had never been done before, had been declared impossible by species with millennia more experience than humanity. All ships report ready, Webb announced. Cargo bays have been converted to aquatic transport. We've got capacity for approximately 17,000 Morvani per ship. Shield generators are at maximum output, and we've routed auxiliary power to the forward deflectors. We're as ready as we're going to get. Chin activated the fleet-wide communication channel. Her voice was steady, carrying the kind of calm authority that came from years of commanding in crisis situations. Captains Okafor and Zhang, this is Chin. We are about to attempt something that every expert says cannot be done. We are going to ride a compression wave through an electromagnetic hellstorm to rescue 50,000 people that the galaxy has written off as already dead. Our shields will fail, our systems will be pushed beyond their design limits, and we will be cut off from any support or backup. But those people down there are counting on us, and I did not join the exploration fleet to let mathematics decide who lives and dies. We go in together, we extract everyone we can, and we come out together. No one gets left behind. The response from the Valkyrie came first, Captain Amara Okafor's voice carrying a slight Nigerian accent and absolute conviction. Horizon, this is Valkyrie. We did not come all this way to turn back now. My crew is ready. Captain Li Zhang's voice followed from the Artemis, calm and measured. Horizon, this is Artemis. Let us show the galaxy what humans can do when we decide impossible is just another challenge. Chin allowed herself a small smile. Then let's go surf a collapsing nebula. The three ships moved forward in perfect formation, their shields already beginning to glow as they encountered the outer edges of the compression wave. The plan required split-second timing and absolute trust between the vessels. They would position themselves at the leading edge of the wave, angle their shields to create a pressure differential, and allow the immense forces of the collapsing nebula to propel them inward faster than their engines alone could achieve. The moment they entered the wave, every alarm on every ship began screaming. The forces hitting their shields were beyond anything they had trained for, beyond anything their simulations had prepared them for. The horizon shuddered violently, and Chen had to grip her command chair to stay upright. The view screen showed nothing but crimson chaos, gases compressed so tightly they were beginning to achieve fusion reactions, creating miniature stars that flared and died in microseconds. "This is Valkyrie," Captain Okafor transmitted, her voice tight with strain. "We are experiencing shield stress at 70% capacity. Adjusting angle by 3 degrees. Artemis confirms," Zhang added. "Forward deflectors are holding, but we are detecting microfractures in the secondary emitters. Continuing forward." Dr. Okoye worked frantically at his station, his fingers dancing across holographic controls as he adjusted their trajectory in real time. "The wave is accelerating us beyond predicted parameters. We are currently moving at 0.4 light speed and increasing. At this rate, we will reach Deepwater Station in 90 minutes instead of 3 hours. That is both good news and catastrophic news," Webb observed. "Good because we will have more time for evacuation, catastrophic because our shields were only designed to withstand this for 3 hours at lower speeds." "How long do we have?" Chen asked. 2 hours, maybe 2.5 before the shields fail completely," Okoye replied without looking up from his calculations. "After that, we are exposed to temperatures exceeding 50 million degrees. The hull will last perhaps 30 seconds. So we have 2 hours to reach the station, load 50,000 people and get back out," Chen said calmly. "That means we need to complete the evacuation in under 1 hour. Inform Deepwater Station that we are coming in fast and they need to have everyone ready to move the moment we arrive." The electromagnetic interference was playing havoc with their communications, but they managed to get a message through to Director Kelver. The response came back fragmented but clear enough. "All Morvani are assembled at the primary docking bays. We have organized evacuation groups. Children and families first, then elderly, then research staff. We are ready, Captain Chen, and we are grateful beyond words." The 3 human ships rode the compression wave deeper into the nebula, and the environmental conditions continued to deteriorate. The electromagnetic storms were so intense that they could see lightning arcing between their own shields, creating cascading energy discharges that lit up the crimson gases like strobing lights. The temperature readings climbed higher and higher, the superheated plasma beginning to interact with their shield harmonics in ways that created feedback loops. Okoye had to constantly adjust their shield frequencies to prevent resonance cascades that would bring the entire system down. At 2030 Universal Standard Time, they emerged from the compression wave into the eye of the storm. Deepwater Station floated before them, and it was both magnificent and heartbreaking. The structure was enormous, a series of interconnected spheres and cylinders that had once gleamed with the characteristic blue-green of Morvani architecture. Now it was battered and broken, entire sections crushed by the compression forces, others venting atmosphere and fluids into space where they immediately flash-froze in the nebula's altered physics. But the station's core remained intact, and clustered around its docking bays were thousands of Morvani, visible through the transparent sections as bioluminescent patterns flickering with fear and desperate hope. "All ships," Chen transmitted, "begin docking procedures. We have 1 hour to get everyone aboard." The docking process was complicated by the fact that human and Morvani technology was not designed to interface. The connection systems were incompatible, the pressure requirements were different, and the electromagnetic interference was making automated systems fail constantly. But the human crews adapted with characteristic ingenuity. They used emergency docking clamps, magnetic seals, and in some cases simply cut through airlocks with plasma torches to create direct connections. The Morvani began flowing into the human ships, and the scene was unlike anything Chen had witnessed in her years of service. The Morvani moved through water-filled corridors that the human crews had hastily constructed, their movements graceful despite their fear. They were smaller than humans, averaging about 4 feet in length, with streamlined bodies covered in bioluminescent scales that created patterns of communication. Parents carried their young, who were even smaller, about the size of human infants. The elderly moved more slowly, their patterns dimmer but still expressing gratitude in the visual language of their species. Human crew members worked alongside them, helping to guide groups toward the converted cargo bays, making sure no one was left behind in the chaos. The cargo bay conversions were crude but effective. Dr. Okoye had supervised the installation of force fields that created massive water tanks filling nearly the entire volume of each ship's cargo space. The Morvani could exist comfortably in their natural aquatic environment, packed far more densely than would ever be possible if they were wearing environmental suits. It was uncomfortable, certainly, but it would keep them alive long enough to reach safety. The evacuation proceeded with remarkable efficiency considering the circumstances. Director Kelver had organized his people with military precision, creating groups of exactly 500 that moved as units. The human crews quickly learned to recognize the bioluminescent patterns that indicated family groups, medical emergencies, or structural concerns. They adapted their procedures on the fly, finding solutions to problems they had never encountered before. When one docking bay's airlock failed completely, Commander Webb personally led a team into the damaged section wearing heavy environmental suits. They jury-rigged a temporary pressure tunnel using emergency airlocks and cargo netting, creating a passage that allowed 3,000 Morvani to evacuate through what should have been an impassable breach. When the water filtration systems in the Artemis started failing under the load of so many additional life forms, Captain Zhang rerouted power from non-essential systems and had her engineering team construct improvised filters using materials scavenged from the station itself. At the 40-minute mark, they had evacuated 38,000 Morvani. The ships were already far beyond their design capacity, the cargo bays filled with water and frightened civilians. But 12,000 remained on Deepwater Station, and the compression wave was closing in again. The eye of the storm was shrinking, the safe zone becoming smaller with each passing minute. Shields are at 40%, Webb reported, his voice tense. The wave is converging faster than predicted. We have maybe 20 minutes before this entire region becomes uninhabitable. Chen made a decision that would either save everyone or kill them all. All ships, emergency procedure. We are going to dock directly to the station's central core and create a continuous evacuation chain. No more individual group movements. We flow everyone through as fast as physically possible. It was dangerous because connecting all 3 ships to the station simultaneously would make them vulnerable if the structure failed. They would all be locked together, unable to maneuver, unable to escape if something went catastrophically wrong. But it was also the only way to evacuate 12,000 people in 20 minutes. The 3 human vessels locked onto Deepwater Station's central core, creating a trinity of connections. The hatches opened, and the evacuation became a continuous stream. Morvani flowed through the connections like a river, human crew members stationed at intervals to guide and assist. The children came through in clusters, surrounded by adults. The elderly moved more slowly but were helped along by both humans and younger Morvani. The research staff came last, many of them carrying data cores and samples, unwilling to abandon years of work even in the face of death. Director Kelver supervised from the station, his bioluminescent patterns shifting constantly as he communicated with different groups. He watched as his people flowed into the human ships, as these strange bipedal creatures who barely knew his species worked tirelessly to save every single life. At the 15-minute mark, there were 5,000 Morvani remaining. At 10 minutes, 2,000. At 5 minutes, fewer than 300. The compression wave was visible now even inside the eye of the storm, a wall of supercompressed matter advancing from all directions. The temperature was spiking, the electromagnetic interference reaching levels that were causing systems failures across all 3 ships. Chen watched the countdown with ice in her veins, watched as the last groups of Morvani evacuated, watched as Director Kelver himself finally left his command center. The Morvani director was the last civilian to board, swimming through the connection to the horizon with his patterns flickering in patterns that Chen's translator interpreted as gratitude and sorrow. Behind him, Deepwater Station was coming apart, bulkheads collapsing, the structure groaning under forces it was never designed to withstand. All civilians are aboard, Webb reported. We need to disconnect now. Disconnect all docking clamps, Chen ordered. All ships prepare for emergency acceleration. We are leaving this nebula and we are not stopping for anything. The 3 ships disengaged from the dying station and fired their engines at maximum power. They could not use faster-than-light drives because the electromagnetic interference would tear the drives apart, so they had to rely on conventional propulsion to escape the compression wave. But conventional propulsion against a wave moving at nearly half the speed of light was an exercise in futility. We cannot outrun it, Okoye reported, his voice steady despite the impossibility of their situation. The wave will overtake us in approximately 8 minutes. Shields will fail in 6. Chen stared at the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities, options, desperate gambles. They had come so far, saved so many people, and now physics was going to kill them all anyway. Unless they could change the physics. Dr. Okoye-chin said slowly, the compression wave is being driven by the nebula's collapse. What if we disrupt the collapse? You would need to counteract the forces causing the implosion, Okoye replied. That would require energy on a scale we simply do not have. We would need something equivalent to a stellar detonation. What about 50 stellar detonations? Chin pulled up the station's inventory records that Director Kelver had transmitted. Deepwater Station was a mining facility. They extracted plasma crystals from the nebula. How many plasma crystals are still in their storage facilities? Okoye's eyes widened as he understood what Chin was proposing. According to these records, approximately 5,000 metric tons of refined plasma crystals. If we could detonate them simultaneously, the energy release would be enormous, possibly enough to disrupt the compression wave's coherence at least temporarily. How do we detonate 5,000 tons of plasma crystals that are inside a collapsing station in the middle of a compression wave? Webb asked. We asked Director Kelver for the access codes to the station's self-destruct system, Chin replied. She opened a channel to the Morvani director, who was in the Horizon's cargo bay with thousands of his people. Director Kelver, I need authorization to trigger Deepwater Station's self-destruct sequence. There was a long pause, then Kelver's response came through, his translator rendering his bioluminescent communication into words. Captain Chin, you saved my people when the entire galaxy said it was impossible. If you believe this will give us a chance, then you have my authorization. The access codes are being transmitted now. Okoye worked with frantic intensity, remotely accessing Deepwater Station's systems despite the electromagnetic interference. He overrode safety protocols, disabled failsafes, and set the plasma crystal storage to catastrophic overload. The detonation was set for 60 seconds, which would give them barely enough time to put some distance between themselves and the explosion. All ships, Chin transmitted, emergency acceleration on my mark. In 50 seconds, Deepwater Station is going to explode with enough force to temporarily disrupt the compression wave. We are going to use that disruption to punch through to open space. Our shields are barely functional, our systems are failing, and this is probably going to kill us. But we did not come this far to fail now. The countdown reached 10 seconds. The 3 human ships fired their engines at power levels that exceeded safety margins by enormous factors. 5 seconds. The compression wave was closing in, the temperature readings going off the scale. Detonation. Deepwater Station exploded. 5,000 tons of plasma crystals released their stored energy in a single instant, creating an explosion that briefly outshone the entire nebula. The shockwave expanded outward at relativistic speeds, slamming into the compression wave and disrupting its coherence. For just a few seconds, the wave fragmented, broke apart, created gaps in the collapsing structure. The 3 human ships shot through those gaps like bullets. The shockwave caught them, tossed them forward with additional acceleration that pushed their inertial dampeners to the breaking point. Crew members were thrown against restraints. Equipment tore free from mountings. And in the cargo bays, 50,000 Morvani held on to whatever they could find as their rescue ships were battered by forces that should have torn them apart. The Horizon's shields failed first, the generators finally giving out after hours of abuse. The hull was exposed to the superheated gases for 8 seconds before they cleared the nebula's edge. 8 seconds where the temperature reached levels that began to melt the outer armor, where the electromagnetic interference fried secondary systems, where the ship groaned and screamed with structural stress. But 8 seconds was not quite enough to destroy them. They emerged from the Crimson Nebula traveling at 0.6 light speed, their momentum carrying them clear of the danger zone. Behind them, the nebula completed its collapse, crushing down into a dense core that would eventually form something new, perhaps a neutron star or a black hole. But Deepwater Station and its 50,000 inhabitants were no longer there to be crushed. The 3 ships coasted for 30 minutes before they had put enough distance between themselves and the nebula to risk engaging their faster-than-light drives. When they finally activated the drives and jumped to safety, the entire crew of the Horizon erupted in cheers. In the cargo bays, the Morvani created bioluminescent displays of celebration, patterns of joy and gratitude that lit up the water like underwater fireworks. Captain Chin sat in her command chair, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. They had been operating on adrenaline and determination for hours, pushing themselves and their ships beyond any reasonable limit. We did it, Webb said quietly, sitting at his station with a smile of disbelief. We actually did it. Against all odds, against all calculations, against everything the galaxy said was possible, they had saved 50,000 lives. The journey back to the nearest inhabited system took 6 hours at faster-than-light speeds. During that time, the news of what humanity had done spread across the galaxy with astonishing speed. The Galactic Council, which had declared the rescue impossible, found itself facing uncomfortable questions about why they had not even tried. Other species began to examine their own assumptions about acceptable losses and mathematical certainty. And throughout the galaxy, people began to tell a new story about humans, about a species so young they barely understood the rules but so determined they refused to accept limitations. When the 3 ships arrived at Gateway Station, the massive trade hub that served as humanity's primary connection to galactic civilization, they were met by a fleet of vessels from dozens of species. Medical ships arrived to help transfer the Morvani to proper facilities. Diplomatic vessels carried representatives who wanted to formally thank the human crews. And news ships broadcast images of the rescued Morvani emerging from the human vessels, their bioluminescent patterns creating messages of gratitude in a visual language that transcended words. Director Kelver requested a private meeting with Captain Chin before his people were transferred to the Morvani embassy ship. They met in the Horizons Observation Lounge, the Morvani director in a specialized aquatic environment suit that allowed him to survive outside water for limited periods. Captain Chin, Kelver said through his translator, his patterns flickering with complex emotions, "My people have a saying. To save one life is to save a universe, for each being contains infinite possibilities. You and your crews have saved 50,000 universes today. The Galactic Council said it was impossible, but you humans do not seem to understand that word the way others do." Chin smiled, thinking about all the times humanity had been told something could not be done, all the times they had proven those limitations wrong. Director Kelver, humans have a saying too. The only limits that exist are the ones we accept, and we have never been very good at accepting limits, especially when lives are at stake. Kelver's patterns shifted to something that the translator interpreted as profound respect. The galaxy has been exploring space for millions of years, Captain Chin. Civilizations have risen and fallen, technologies have advanced to heights your species has not yet imagined. But in all that time, all that advancement, we forgot something important. We forgot that sometimes the answer to impossible is not better technology or more time or perfect calculations. Sometimes the answer is simply refusing to give up. Humanity has reminded us of that, and for that, the Morvani will be forever grateful. After Kelver departed, Chin stood at the observation window looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Crimson Nebula was still collapsing, still transforming into something new. But 50,000 people who should have died were alive, saved by humans who decided that impossible was just another word for challenging. Commander Webb joined her at the window. "They are calling us heroes across the galaxy. Our names are going to be in history texts." Chin shrugged. "We did what any decent person would do. We helped people who needed it. That is not heroism, that is just being human." In the weeks that followed, the impact of the Deepwater Station rescue rippled across galactic civilization. The Galactic Council implemented new policies about emergency rescue operations, creating rapid response teams and dedicating resources to developing new technologies specifically for extreme environment evacuations. Multiple species began studying human shield technology and propulsion systems, trying to understand how humanity had achieved what they had declared impossible. The Morvani formally requested that Earth establish an embassy on their homeworld, beginning a friendship between the two species that would last for generations. And throughout the galaxy, people began to look at humanity differently. They were no longer just the young species, the newcomers who barely understood the rules. They were the species that had looked at impossible odds and said not today. They were the species that would fly into a collapsing nebula to save people they had never met, risking everything because it was the right thing to do. Captain Sarah Chin received dozens of awards and commendations from various galactic organizations. She attended exactly one ceremony, made a brief speech about how ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they decide that giving up is not an option, and then returned to her ship. The Horizon had sustained significant damage during the rescue, and while it was being repaired, Chin worked with her crew to analyze what they had learned, to document the procedures they had developed, to ensure that the next time someone said a rescue was impossible, humanity would have even better tools to prove them wrong. On the 1-month anniversary of the rescue, Director Kelver sent a message to Captain Chin. It contained no words, just a recording of 50,000 Morvani creating a synchronized bioluminescent display, patterns of light that needed no translation. They spelled out a simple phrase in the visual language that was beginning to spread across the galaxy as a symbol of hope and determination. They spelled out humanity's answer to the universe's limitations. They spelled out the words that had become Earth's gift to galactic civilization. Not impossible, just difficult.